Imagine working your hardest, pouring your heart into your dreams, only to be rejected by someone who doesn't even know your worth simply because of the color of your skin. That's exactly what happened to a talented woman, full of ambition and potential, when she applied for a job at a company she knew could help her thrive. The hiring manager, someone who should have been a professional, made a decision that felt like a slap in the face. He looked at her dismissed her, and rejected her for reasons that had nothing to do with her abilities. But here's the twist: this isn't just another story of disappointment. Fast forward a few years, and that same woman who was turned away is now walking through the doors of that very company. Not as an employee, but as the new CEO. What happened? How did she go from being overlooked to becoming the one in charge? In this story, we'll explore how one woman turned a painful rejection into a powerful victory, and how the tables were turned in a way no one saw coming. The path she took wasn't easy, but it was her grit, her determination, and her unwavering belief in herself that brought her to the top. But the real question is, will the boss who once rejected her even recognize her? And how will he react when he realizes the woman he thought he could ignore is now the one calling the shots? Stay tuned, because the shocking twist is just beginning. The story picks up right where we left off that fateful day when the woman who had been turned away walks into the company she was once rejected from, but this time, things are different. This time, she's not just another applicant trying to get her foot in the door. No, she's the one in charge. She's the new CEO. At first, no one realizes who she is. The staff goes about their day, carrying on with their work. They don't know the history between the company and the woman who now holds their future in her hands. The hiring manager, oblivious to the life-changing turn of events, sits at his desk, focused on his tasks. He doesn't recognize her face at first. When she enters the building, there's an almost surreal feeling in the air. People are going about their usual business, but there's an undercurrent of something strange, something different. The woman walks through the lobby, her eyes scanning the familiar surroundings she hadn't seen in years. She remembers every detail: the sleek glass walls, the polished floors, the waiting area where she once nervously sat for an interview that felt more like a test of endurance than opportunity. Her heart beats a little faster, but it's not out of fear this time. It's a quiet sense of triumph. She had made it. She had proven to herself, and to the world, that her value wasn't determined by the decision of one person in a room full of judgment. She had come a long way since then. As she approaches the elevator, her thoughts drift back to the rejection. That day was supposed to be just another step in her journey, another application for a job she was more than qualified for. But the moment she walked into that interview, she could feel the change in the air. It was in the hiring manager's eyes, a brief glance that seemed to say it all. She knew instantly that the odds were stacked against her. The subtle way he dismissed her, barely even glancing at her resume, was enough to tell her the real reason she wasn't being considered. She didn't fit the mold of what he was looking for, and that wasn't because of her qualifications. But that was then. This is now. The elevator doors slide open, and she steps into the office, her heels clicking on the polished floor as she makes her way to the CEO's office. She's not nervous anymore, though she remembers a time when she would have felt her stomach turn just thinking about walking into a corporate space like this. Back then, she wasn't just up against her own doubts, but an entire system that didn't take her seriously, simply because of her skin color. But now, with years of experience, hard work, and determination behind her, she had the power to shape the company's future. She was no longer a hopeful applicant. She was the boss. The hiring manager's office door is ajar, and as she approaches, she can hear his voice on the phone. He sounds confident, commanding even. It's almost as if he's oblivious to the fact that his whole world is about to be flipped upside down. The woman stands still for a moment, letting the moment sink in. This is it. The moment where everything changes. She takes a deep breath, gathers her composure, and knocks on the door. The sound is loud enough to break his flow, and he looks up, startled. His face falls into confusion when he sees her standing there, wearing an impeccable suit and a confident smile. He puts down the phone, rising to greet her. "Can I help you?" he asks, trying to place her face. She smiles, a soft yet knowing smile. Yes, I'm here for my first day as CEO. His face pales. The moment he hears those words, the shock in his eyes is unmistakable. He tries to hide it, but it's clear. He stammers a few words, attempting to regain his composure, but the damage has already been done. The woman, standing tall and unshaken, watches him. For a moment, there's nothing but silence. The tension in the air is palpable. She can feel the weight of his gaze, the way his mind is racing to catch up with the reality of the situation. He had no idea. He never thought she would make it this far. In his mind, she was just another rejection letter, just another failure to sweep under the rug. But today, that failure is staring him right in the face. And he doesn't know how to handle it. As she steps into the office, she catches a glimpse of the photos on the wall. The team that had hired her had clearly been proud of their successes, but she couldn't help but wonder how much of it was built on the backs of people like her, people who were pushed aside because of their race, because of their gender, or because of some arbitrary standard set by someone like him. She looks at him, eyes steady. I know this might be a surprise to you, but I'm here to make some changes. I'm not here to tear things down, but I am here to build something better. For everyone. Whether you like it or not, we're moving forward. Her words hang in the air like a challenge, daring him to respond. But he says nothing. Instead, he shifts uncomfortably in his seat, his hands fumbling with the papers on his desk. His mind is still racing, trying to process the reality of the moment. He had rejected her, dismissed her as nothing more than another candidate who didn't fit the mold, and now she was in his chair, his position, and his power. But the woman wasn't finished. She wasn't here to make him feel comfortable. She wasn't here to ease his guilt or soothe his ego. She was here to take control, to steer this company in a direction it had never seen before. As the hiring manager struggles to find his words, a new conflict begins to take shape. The woman's rise to power has already set off a ripple effect throughout the company. Some employees, especially those who had been silently supporting her in the past, are excited. They see the change coming, the possibility of a more inclusive, fair workplace where they too can thrive without fear of judgment. They're ready to back her. But there are others, employees who have been complicit in the old ways, who are terrified. They see her as a threat, not just to their position but to the entire way of doing business. They fear the changes she represents. Will she dismantle everything they've worked for? Will she expose the way the company had operated for so long, a system that overlooked talent based on skin color and backgrounds? As the hiring manager struggles to regain his bearings, a sense of unease settles over the room. The woman knows that this is just the beginning. The real work is yet to come. But one thing is certain: she's ready for the fight, no matter where it leads. The room feels heavy with tension as the woman watches the hiring manager struggle to find his words. He's still trying to process the shock of the moment. It's hard for him to reconcile the image of the woman standing in front of him with the one he had dismissed years ago, the woman he had brushed aside because of his own prejudices, who now stands before him as the CEO of the company he once held so much power in. But there's no time for him to gather his thoughts. The woman knows that this moment will define everything that comes after. She steps further into the room, taking his seat in the chair across from him, her posture poised and confident, the weight of her years of experience and determination radiating from her. She's not here to settle scores or to dwell on the past. She's here to change the future, for herself and everyone who had been held back by the outdated systems of the company. I know this is hard for you to understand, she says, her voice calm but firm. But I'm here now, and I'm going to make sure this company reflects what the world really needs: inclusivity, opportunity, and the kind of leadership that empowers everyone, not just a select few. The hiring manager shifts in his seat, his discomfort growing. He's used to being in control, but this woman, the one he had rejected without a second thought, is now the one holding all the power. There's nothing he can do but listen, though part of him wants to protest. He wants to argue, to push back against what feels like an inevitable change, but he knows that deep down, he's powerless now. His mind begins to churn as the reality of the situation hits him. This isn't just about the company's future, it's about his own. His job, his career, everything he's worked for could be on the line. He was complicit in a system that turned a blind eye to talent, that dismissed people because of their race or gender, and now that very system was coming to an end. And the woman sitting across from him, the one he had so easily overlooked, is the one in charge of shaping what comes next. But the hiring manager isn't the only one affected by the shift in power. Word begins to spread quickly throughout the company. Employees start to whisper about the new CEO, about the woman who had once been rejected and now holds the reins of power. Some of them are skeptical. After all, they've seen so many people rise to the top only to fall once they realize how difficult it really is to lead. But others, especially those who had always felt overlooked or pushed aside, see this as a sign of hope. They see her as a beacon of change, someone who will finally bring fairness and equality to a workplace that had always seemed to favor the same group of people. Among them is a woman who had worked her way up from the bottom, a woman who had been passed over for promotions time and time again. She had watched her male colleagues, many of them with less experience and qualifications, rise through the ranks while she stayed stuck in the same position. She knew what it was like to be invisible, to feel like she was working twice as hard for half the recognition. And now, with this new CEO in charge, she felt like the tide was finally shifting. Maybe, just maybe, things would be different. But even as the hope begins to spread, there are those who are less than thrilled with the new leadership. The old guard, the ones who had benefited from the status quo, are unsettled. They've worked too long to allow someone like her to come in and change everything they've worked so hard for. They're scared. They've watched companies falter when leadership shifts, when new ideas are introduced, when the familiar faces are no longer in charge. And they're determined to make sure that doesn't happen here. They begin to quietly strategize, looking for ways to undermine the new CEO, to challenge her authority. The woman knows this. She's seen it all before. She's dealt with the quiet resistance, the whispers behind closed doors, the people who are afraid of change. But she's not going to let that stop her. She's been down that road before, and she knows that change, true change, is never easy. But she's willing to fight for it. Days pass, and the new CEO sets to work immediately. She meets with her team, listens to their concerns, and makes it clear that she's here to lead with integrity and fairness. She works to rebuild trust, making it clear that every voice in the company matters. She introduces policies that promote diversity and inclusivity, that provide equal opportunities for everyone, regardless of their background. Slowly but surely, she starts to see results. Morale begins to rise as employees feel valued and heard. People start to believe that change is possible. But the old guard isn't giving up without a fight. They continue to work behind the scenes, undermining the CEO's efforts, pushing back against her initiatives, trying to weaken her position. They're savvy, and they know how to play the game. They try to plant seeds of doubt, spreading rumors about her leadership style, questioning her qualifications, even attacking her character. At first, the woman brushes it off. She knows that this is part of the battle. But as the attacks grow more personal, as the resistance becomes more organized, she starts to feel the weight of it all. It's exhausting. It's frustrating. But she can't afford to back down. She knows that if she does, everything she's worked for, everything she's fought for will be lost. One evening, after a long day of meetings and strategy sessions, she sits alone in her office, staring out at the city skyline. It's a beautiful view, but it feels empty to her at that moment. She's wondering if she's doing enough, if she's strong enough to keep pushing forward. The pressure is immense, and there are days when she wonders if she's making the right decisions. She thinks back to that interview, to the way the hiring manager had looked at her, dismissing her as unworthy. She thinks about how far she's come since then, and the weight of the responsibility she now carries. Just then, there's a knock at the door. It's the woman from earlier, the one who had felt overlooked and underestimated for so long. She enters with a soft smile and takes a seat across from the CEO. "I just wanted to thank you," she says, her voice filled with sincerity. "For believing in us. For seeing us, for giving us a chance." I don't think you know what it means to so many of us. The CEO looks at her, surprised by the unexpected gratitude. She smiles warmly, realizing that even in the midst of all the challenges, this is why she's fighting. For people like her. For everyone who has been told they weren't good enough. For the people who have been passed over, dismissed, or ignored. We're in this together, the CEO says, her voice steady, full of resolve. We're going to build something better. Not just for us, but for everyone who comes after us. And slowly, with each day that passes, things begin to change. The resistance doesn't disappear overnight, but the cracks in the old system begin to show. The woman's leadership is strong, and her vision is clearer than ever. As the company begins to thrive under her guidance, those who once doubted her start to realize that she's not just a figurehead. She's a leader. And she's not going anywhere. In the end, the company flourishes, and the woman who was once rejected is now a symbol of strength, resilience, and the power of change. Her story becomes an inspiration to others, showing them that no matter the obstacles, no matter the doubts or the setbacks, they too can rise. She has proven that with hard work, determination, and the courage to face down adversity, anything is possible. And the hiring manager? He eventually leaves the company, unable to reconcile with the changes and unable to accept the new reality. But by then, it doesn't matter. The company is stronger than ever, and the woman who had once been rejected has proven that the future belongs to those who are brave enough to create it.